So Ben Wallace, this is going to be probably my favorite topic because I am a big Ben Wallace fan, and I just want Anthony to clear the confusion up a little bit. But Ben Wallace said Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren could lead this team into the next generation. Like I told Anthony before we got on the podcast, I feel like Ben Wallace is quoting Star Trek or something, so I don't know what the next generation means. So before we really dive into this, Anthony, just explain a little bit more of this interview.
Well, I got to give Duece some credit because he actually sent me this video. I didn't even see it. It was just super deep in YouTube. And I was just like, guy's got like 10 subscribers. I wouldn't have found that. But
yeah.
So during that whole interview, Ben Wallace sat down with this guy. I don't even know his name. I think it was NBA Corner. Give him a shout out.
Mm-hmm.
He was talking about, Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart. He was asked about Jalen Duren, said, hey, he kind of reminds me of a modern you. The way you play. And Ben Wallace was just saying, like, that kid hasn't even scratched the surface yet, being 19, the way he's built, the way he's playing. Like, Ben was saying those two could be the next generation front court in Detroit if they keep working and they keep grinding. And I think the way I kind of, captioned it in a graphic, it kind of, people are like, dude, what the hell are you talking about? What do you mean next generation? Like, could be is the word you need to focus on. They could be if they continue to work and continue to develop their game. I think Isaiah Stewart has done a very good job of developing that three-point shot. And there are games where it seems like he can't make a layup, and there's other games where he's dunking, posting up a little bit. I think, his development, he should really focus on a mid-range game. We talked about that in previous podcasts. Jalen Duren, I think we're probably seeing 5% of what he can actually do. Like that's the scary part. Like,
yeah,
he's just, protecting the paint, being that anchor on defense, rim running. We're starting to see like a little bit of that post game, and you can tell that Rasheed Wallace has his fingerprints on it because some of his post moves are so similar to Rasheed Wallace.
Yeah.
And I want him to continue to work with Rasheed because Rasheed Wallace in his day was a very good post player. I know I'm going off topic with this whole topic, Lance.
No,
I do apologize.
No, you're good.
I apologize. But to me, I think those two can work if you don't land the number one pick in this draft. Because if you do land the number one pick in the draft, you might have to break that up.
Okay, so my thoughts on this real quick are, I think regardless of what happens in this draft, Jalen Duren will be the starting center, no matter what. Even if the Pistons end up with Victor Wembanyama, I think he's probably going to be at that 4 spot. That's what I think happens. So I think Jalen Duren is safe. What I think happens with Isaiah Stewart, because he definitely does have a future on this team, I think he ultimately comes off the bench. The way he's developing offensively, when he's driving and when he's shooting the ball outside, that's been great. We've all seen those improvements. But when he's putting the ball on the ground, that is showing a level of shot creation I think many of us didn't think he had. So there's another evolution in his game. And I just think him being able to do those two things make him a great candidate for a guy to be a high-end bench player eventually on this team. I think he's better. I think he won't get beat up so much as a starting big man if he came off the bench because he wouldn't be going against all the great athletes that are in the starting lineup. He wouldn't be going against the Joel Embiids for 28 minutes per game. He'll be able to pick on some of the weaker bench players. And I just think that's ultimately the goal for Isaiah Stewart. Still a leader on this team, just in a different role. A leader doesn't mean he has to start. It just means he, is a hard worker and can get the most out of himself and the most out of this team. But Downtown, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think he can. I think he can be a starting power forward on a contending team. I think if this were his ceiling, I would say absolutely not. But I think because he's so young and the guys around him are so young, I think the progressions of the other players, Kate Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, those guys, I think Jalen Duren, those guys' progressions, I think are really going to help Isaiah Stewart long term as they continue to grow into their selves. Because I think more of the offense is going to be focused on them, which is going to allow an Isaiah Stewart, if he keeps developing his three-point shot, to really be, have a clip out there and really be effective out there. So I think the progression of his teammates is what is going to allow him potentially, if he reaches his ceiling, to be that starting forward.
I get you. So you agree with Ben Wallace that these two could be the leaders of this next, I guess, we'll just say championship team. I don't like saying the next generation.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I think so. I think when you think about a lot of Pistons teams and just teams in general, they had that guy, that big man that did the dirty work, and then they had the big man that was just offensively gifted and able to do so many other things. You think about, when we had Rick Mahorn and Bill Laimbeer. Laimbeer wasn't a post player; he was more so a 3-point threat. And even when we had Rasheed and Ben Wallace, Rasheed was the offensive genius, and Ben Wallace was doing everything else. I think even with teams like Boston when they won in '08, they had Kendrick Perkins and Kevin Garnett, the offensive genius once again, and then the guys doing the dirty work. So if you have Isaiah Stewart at his peak, being able to stretch the floor in addition to doing what he's good at doing, I think then and only then. But that's a lot of ifs. So I'm with you, Lance. A lot has to go right, in my opinion, in order for him to be able to have that starting spot on that contending team.
So, well, what about this? Do you think that maybe we're seeing a better Isaiah Stewart in terms of statistically, because he's averaging, I think, 11 and 7 on the season. Do you think his numbers are that way because of his individual talent, or just because he doesn't really have that much competition at his position?
That's a good question. I think it would be more so, if he gets to 14 and 10, 15 and 11, I think that's his peak. I think that's his peak. And I think if he can do that, along with stretching the floor consistently and doing the little things and being that presence defensively, along with Jalen Duren, I think then it's possible. I can really see it.
Okay. What about you, Anthony? You got any more thoughts on this topic?
No, I've always kind of compared Isaiah Stewart to a Paul Millsap. I kind of think that to me, talking about Paul Millsap and Al Horford when they were in Atlanta, when they were, winning 60 games, but getting knocked out of the first round by LeBron. But it was still a great team. I think if you could have that type of, front court, I think a lot of Pistons fans would be happy, in my personal opinion. And to your question, Isaiah Stewart has no competition at the backup four. He just doesn't.
Yeah.
It's Isaiah Livers, and Isaiah Livers doesn't have the size that Isaiah Stewart does. I'm sorry, Lance. I know he's your favorite player, but it's not any real competition.
No,
definitely. I just think I love Isaiah Stewart. I've never spoken negatively about him. I've been high on him for a long time. I love the idea of it working like Al Horford and Robert Williams do in Boston. I wish it would work that way with Stewart and Duren. Maybe we see it, maybe we don't. I don't know. The other thing I love about Isaiah Stewart is that, dude, I think this is a guy that would accept any role as long as the team is winning. And that's really probably what I love the most about him, other than just him, developing offensively and becoming this pretty solid defensive player as well, like we've seen since he's been a rookie. Other than that stuff, just his attitude and, just basically his attitude towards this team. That's what I really love about Isaiah Stewart. So whether he's starting or not, I still think he's going to be a big part of this future.